Yeah, I think we've got it working now. Yep, I can see the picture and you can hear me. Okay, awesome. Thanks, Jim. All right. Well, hello everybody. Mike Dillard here, and I apologize for the little technical difficulties that we were having, but I believe we're good to go now. So, allow me to officially welcome everybody to today's presentation. Time is definitely of the essence. I have a ton of incredible information to share with you today, so we're just going to dive right in. And frankly, we are here today to talk about one thing, which is how to become wealthy. More specifically, I'm going to show you how you can turn times of economic trouble like those we're experiencing today into enormous wealth. I'm going to show you how you can take advantage of the single greatest wealth transfer in the history of mankind that is happening right now at this very moment. And what really makes this presentation unlike anything else that you've ever seen is that I'm going to take you inside the black box investing strategies of the rich and show you how they really protect and grow their money. Now, I realize this might seem like an odd topic to discuss right now. After all, the economy is on the verge of depression and has been for the past couple of years. Over 20% of the U.S. workforce is unemployed by the real measure of statistics, and we'll get into that a little bit later. The average baby boomer's portfolio has lost 30 to 40% of its real value, and there's no recovery in sight. So giving a presentation teaching people how to become financially wealthy during the worst economic conditions since the Great Depression seems a little bit counterintuitive, if not downright silly. Well, here's why the exact opposite is true. Wealth is never destroyed. It is only transferred from one person to another. When your stock portfolio went down in value, that wealth was transferred to the guy who shorted the market. When the subprime mortgage crisis hit and the value of housing went down, that money was transferred to guys like John Paulson and Steve Eisman, who made billions because they were short on those loans. Now, change creates opportunity, which is why more people became millionaires during the Great Depression than any other time in American history. And that single fact is why we're here together today. When massive change takes place, wealth transfers from one person's hands to another, and today we're living through the single greatest transfer of wealth in human history. So while it may seem a bit strange to talk about getting rich during what is unofficially a global economic depression, it's actually the best opportunity you will ever have during your lifetime to become very, very wealthy if you know how. And that's the million-dollar question that we're going to be answering today in two parts. The first half of this presentation is about predicting the financial future and what I believe is going to happen with the global economy in the coming 6 to 36 months after spending the past 4 years studying the subject very intensely. And in the second half, I'm going to show you how I'm positioning my business and my personal assets to take advantage of this opportunity and how you can do the same. All I ask for in return today is for your time. I want to let you know up front right now that this presentation is going to be around an hour, just over an hour in length. And based on the feedback I've received so far, it may be one of the most valuable hours you ever invest into your family's financial security and prosperity. One thing is certain, you will not leave here the same person or with the same view of the world again. I can promise you that. So please turn off your chat software, close down Facebook, turn off your cell phone, and give this video your undivided attention, because what I'm going to share with you today will have an immediate and massive impact on your future. Now, before we dive in, most of you are already familiar with my story, but I'm sure there's a few people watching this whom I haven't had a chance to meet yet. So I wanted to give you the quick 20-second bio so that you'll know a little bit more about me and my background. I'm 34 years old. I have an amazing family here in Austin, Texas. Back in 2005, I started an online marketing company called Magnetic Sponsoring, which publishes books, CDs, and DVDs that teaches small business owners how to market and sell their products online using attraction marketing. Over 1 million people around the world have subscribed to my email newsletters, and I've had the privilege of speaking to thousands of entrepreneurs about success in marketing from stage or through the various publications that we've been featured in. Today I run 3 companies out of 2 offices with dozens of employees, which have produced more than $30 million in combined revenue during the last 3 to 4 years since the crash happened alone. And I know that when it comes to the internet, people can just throw out numbers and make up anything that they want. So I thought I'd pull out an old 2009 tax return for just one of those businesses, which, as you can see here, did $6.3 million by itself in revenue just in 2009. Now, when it comes to my personal life, And what I do for fun, I'm actually a huge Baja racing fan, and this is a picture of our team here suiting up to race the Baja 1000 recently down in Mexico. But my primary passion and focus over the past 3 years has become the economy and investing, as you will soon see why. So I'd like to begin our journey here today with a story from the past, because understanding the past is the key to predicting the future, and the ability to predict the future is the key to building incredible wealth in today's economy. So once upon a time, life was tough for the largest empire that had ever spanned the globe. Unemployment levels were at all-time highs and getting worse, and as a result, people were saving money and spending less. Retail shops continued to close their doors, and layoffs increased as demand for products slowed. So in response, the government hired thousands of workers at inflated wages. The administration spent record amounts of money on public works projects, food programs to feed the population, and continued to increase the size of the military in order to protect their interests around the world. And as the massive cost for these programs continued to increase, the government had no choice but to print more money in order to pay the bills. All of this will ultimately result in the hyperinflationary destruction of the currency and the fall of an empire. And I can say that with 100% confidence and certainty because it has already happened. Everything I've just described was pulled from the pages of history and are recounting the final days of Rome in 301 AD under Emperor Gaius Diocletian. But if that sounds like a familiar storyline, then you've gotten the point. The trends I just described happened to Rome as they continued to expand their empire. In order to fund their global expansion and wars, Roman leaders continually devalued their currency at the time, which was gold and silver. They did this by clipping coins and mixing them with lesser metals like copper, year after year reducing the value of every coin in the process. This led to rampant inflation by the time Gaius took the throne in 284 AD, as it took more and more coins to buy the same amount of goods. So in 301, he issued his infamous Edict of Prices, which imposed the death penalty on anyone selling goods for more than the government-mandated prices, and he froze all wages. But prices continued to rise. Merchants could no longer sell their wares at a profit, so they closed their shops. People either left their chosen careers or just accepted welfare from the state. Now, at the time, Rome had a population of about 1 million citizens, and the government was handing out free wheat, or their version of food stamps, to 200,000 of them a day. That's about 1 in 5. Well, today, in the U.S., 1 in 4 children are now fed by government-subsidized food stamps. And here's a look at the massive exponential increase in food stamp reliance since 2007, which is unprecedented, but this chart, as you can see, only goes up to July of 2009. Well, if we fast forward to today, that number has gone vertical, surging to 46.5 million participants as of 2012. Now, because the economy was so poor, Diocletian adopted a guns and butter policy. We've probably all heard that term growing up in school, putting people to work by hiring thousands of new soldiers and funding numerous public works projects. Well, this effectively doubled the size of the government and the military. Today, the government and all of its related agencies accounts for about 50% of the U.S. GDP. Now, with Diocletian and their government acting as the consumer and employer of last resort, deficit spending skyrocketed. And all of this resulted in the world's first documented hyperinflation. All currency-based trade came to an end, the economic system reverted to barter, and the greatest empire in history collapsed. Now, we often hear the saying that you can predict the future by studying the past, and while that may be true, I'm not a major student of historic events because I believe there's a more reliable predictor of the future, and that is human nature, which I am an avid student of. Because no matter how much our society has grown technologically or how much knowledge we have acquired, at the end of the day, we're still human, and our decisions and our patterns and behaviors are still dictated by the one thing that we can never escape from, which is our nature and our drive to avoid pain and pursue pleasure. So while many people may think that we as a nation are different than Rome, that here in the year 2012 we're evolved and that we have the knowledge and technology to prevent or fix any challenge that may arise, they're forgetting the one and only thing that really matters, that we're still the same animal behind the wheel and that our nature has not changed. In fact, as my friend Michael Maloney documents in his recent book on the history of currencies, there's a 7-stage progression that happens over and over again. And I shared this with everybody after you registered for today's webinar, but I want to spend a quick 20 seconds reviewing it once more because it's that important. Stage one, or part number one, is that a currency starts out with good money, which is either gold or backed by gold. Stage two, as it develops economically and socially, it begins to take on more and more economic burdens, adding layer upon layer of public works and social programs. In stage three, as its economic affluence grows, so does its political influence, and it increases expenditures to fund a massive military. In stage four, eventually it puts that military to use and expenditures explode. In stage five, to fund those wars, which are the costliest of man's endeavors, it starts to steal the wealth of its people by replacing their money with currency that can be created in unlimited quantities. It does this at the outbreak of a war, as in the case of World War I, or during a war, as in the case of Vietnam, or as a perceived solution to the economic ravages of previous wars, as Germany did after World War I. So, what I want to show you now is this chart, which clearly shows the massive disparity between the military spending of the U.S. versus the rest of the world, with the U.S. spending almost twice as much as the rest of the world combined. All right, so how does that fit into that 7-stage cycle? Well, the trend is continuing to increase, with more than $700 billion going to the military in just 2011 alone. And that finally brings us to stage number 6. The wealth transfer caused by the expansion of the currency supply is felt by the population as severe consumer price inflation, which triggers a loss of faith in the currency. And now we come to stage number 7, where an en masse movement out of the currency into precious metals and other tangible assets takes place. The currency collapses and massive wealth is transferred to those who had enough foresight to position their money into the right asset class beforehand. And as I'll demonstrate later in this presentation, the United States is sitting right between stage 6 and stage 7 right now. So let's talk about what's happening today and how you can profit from it. On the surface, most people think this severe recession we're in right now is a result of the busted housing bubble, which resulted in a massive credit contraction shown here. And while that is indeed the case, what people don't realize is that the credit crunch is only one of 5 major challenges that we're about to face. And in fact, the 4 others are much larger. So let's start with number 1, which is the housing bubble. Back on August 6, 2007, the American Home Mortgage Company filed for bankruptcy, and that was the sign that the global system could not absorb any more debt. Record amounts of debt around the world had fueled the incredible growth seen in the US and Dubai and Singapore, Malaysia, China, and so many other countries who had experienced massive booms in real estate and development. Well, that day, the debt bubble burst, and because all of this debt had been collateralized and resold time and time again through derivatives, it was an event that was felt around the world. Now, the popping of any credit bubble is a deflationary event, and in the case of the Great Depression, it was extremely deflationary. When a home goes into foreclosure, a loan gets defaulted on, or someone files for bankruptcy, that currency simply disappears back into currency heaven where it came from. So as credit goes bad, the currency supply contracts and deflation sets in, and this is what happened in the 1930s during America's Great Depression. As a wave of foreclosures and bankruptcies swept the nation, 1/3 of the currency supply in the United States evaporated into thin air. And over the next 3 years, wages and prices fell by 1/3. Companies could not afford to pay their employees, and those people could not afford to pay their bills. And as we all know, whether it's from the stories from our grandparents or pictures from the history books, it was a disastrous period in our country's history. Well, this process began once again in 2008 with the popping of the housing credit bubble. Over the past 36 months, deflation has sucked an estimated $60 trillion worth of credit out of the global economy. And that's $60 trillion worth of fuel, which was flaming the fires of growth around the world, and it virtually disappeared overnight. And the result was massive deflation. Money and credit have become harder and harder to find as the money supply continues to contract. For any of you who have gone out and tried to get a home loan, you probably have experienced that firsthand. There's less money to be spent, so prices and volume of sales continue to fall. Falling prices and sales volume leads to more layoffs and reduced salaries, which means less money is spent, creating this downward spiral. Well, today, real unemployment in the United States is actually twice the official number stated by the government, which does not include people in that statistic who haven't looked for a job in more than 30 days or those who have part-time jobs. So if you include those two groups, real unemployment sits about 23% today, Well, the unemployment rate during the Great Depression was 24%. And here's a current chart going back to the 1940s showing the number of Americans unemployed for 27 weeks or more to put the severity of the real numbers into perspective. As deflation continues, the value of people's homes continue to decline, destroying the number one source of available equity and credit that most people had amassed. Now here's an image of the declining amount of tax revenue that the government has been able to acquire, which means an increase in taxes for the rich. Now this is what the majority of people in our country are aware of because they've heard about it in the news, they've seen the price of their home decline, or frankly they've lost their job. But let's get into the real problems that aren't discussed nearly as often. That brings us to number 2, which is record amounts of new debt. And this is the big one. The bottom line is that Ben Bernanke and the government will do everything within their power to fight deflation because deflation would cause a domino effect of defaulting IOUs that would absolutely destroy a debt-based economy like the one that we have. In fact, this is a chart of our national debt from 1940 to 2010, and I believe that, well, it speaks for itself. Today, the U.S. has a gross domestic product of about $14.6 trillion. That's what we produce on an annual basis. Our debt level is at $15.8 trillion and growing by more than $1 trillion per year, which means that for the very first time in U.S. history, we currently owe more than we produce. And now the big question is, who's buying all of this debt? Well, until recently, the biggest buyer has been China, which today has around $3 trillion in U.S. holdings. But since 2009, they've been purchasing less and less, and now they've begun to actually sell our debt. So Japan stepped in and started purchasing more and more, at least until the earthquake in Fukushima happened. And since that took place, they've really fallen off the table as far as their debt buys go. But the number one buyer of U.S. debt since 2008 has been the Federal Reserve itself, who is now purchasing up to 80% of all new debt issued. Without anyone else willing to buy U.S. Treasuries, the Fed is being forced to print new money out of thin air in order to buy the debt themselves. And the more they print, the more we owe interest on. And the more we owe interest on, the more we have to print. It's a giant Ponzi scheme. And we, as the U.S. taxpayers, are left holding the tab for every single dollar of it. This is called debt monetization, and it is the last desperate move a bankrupt institution can make in order to keep that Ponzi scheme going. This move has prompted the Standard & Poor's rating agency to downgrade the U.S. credit rating for the very first time in history from AAA to AA with a negative outlook, and we've been expecting and calling for this to happen for more than 3 years, and now it is a reality. But this is just the beginning. In the coming months and years, the true state of our union will become clear to everyone, and once that happens, it will cause interest rates on our nation's debt to skyrocket, which is no different than Amex raising the interest rate on your credit card debt. Stocks, bonds, and mutual funds will tumble, and commodities like gold and silver would skyrocket. Borrowing costs for everything would climb sharply, killing the housing market for good. So should we default on our debt, it would lead to an unimaginable depression and a period of social and political upheaval unlike anything we've seen since the Civil War. And if you think that that sounds a little extreme, just keep this in mind. Around 50% of the entire U.S. workforce today is employed by the government. If the debt ceiling isn't raised, or if the U.S. defaults, 50% of working Americans will stop receiving their government paycheck. That includes everyone in the military, social services, judicial services, postal systems, fire departments, the EMS, and law enforcement, to name just a few. So the bottom line is that too much debt got us into this mess, but we can't let the balloon continue to deflate, or it will shrink down to nothing and will fall into the next Great Depression. So the Fed's only option is to keep raising the debt ceiling and continue to pump in more and more debt in order to stop that IOU domino from falling. And with every dollar printed into existence, it decreases the value of the dollars already in the world. This process is called inflation, and all I need to show you is this one simple picture. This chart shows the total amount of currency that's been produced by the Federal Reserve since 1913. It took 84 years from 1913 to 2007, right around there, to put $825 billion into circulation. Well, the Fed doubled that number within the first 24 months of this crisis, trying to keep the bubble inflated, as you can see here. And this is rapidly reducing the value of your money. And in fact, here's a chart for the US dollar value over a 12-month period last year, which shows a 15% drop in value in just 1 year. That means your dollars in your savings account, in your mutual funds, or wherever they may be, can now buy 15% less goods in the time frame of a year than it could the previous year beforehand. And there's going to come a point in time when all of these other countries are going to say, hey, it's time to sell our dollars in order to salvage any of the value that might be left. I mean, how long would you keep your investment in dollars if it was losing 5, 10, 15% in value per year? Not very long. This is an article that really shows that that's already begun to happen. This is a piece from Zero Hedge that essentially points out that China intends to sell 2/3 of its $3 trillion in U.S. holdings. As a result of the Fed's printing, all countries for the very first time in history are now being forced to print money because we have a connected global economy. If they don't, their currencies will rise in value against the dollar, and their exports are going to drop because their goods are going to become more expensive, causing deflation in their economy. So many countries have been forced to inflate their currencies before, but never in history has every major country in the world been forced to crank up the printing presses simultaneously. This will most likely result in hyperinflation as the economies of the world race to keep their currencies from appreciating in value against everybody else's. And according to history, the prices of food, energy, and goods will skyrocket, frankly bankrupting everybody that you know. This is not a theory. This is going back into the pages of history, and I'll demonstrate that here in just a second. Your expenses are going to go up while your income goes down. Anyone that is on a fixed income who does not own gold or precious metals will be forced to feed themselves from a breadline or starve. This is the sign that a nation has entered stage 7 of its life cycle, and as for the US, this process has already begun. Just in 2010 alone, global food prices rose a dramatic 24%. In 2011, we experienced record all-time highs in the World Food Price Index due to inflation, resulting in the riots we saw in 6 different countries and overthrown governments in Tunisia and Egypt. So if you think this is really extreme, worst-case scenario, doomsday stuff that will never happen, I want you to keep in mind that hyperinflation has already happened in 30 countries in the last 100 years alone. Here's a few examples: Argentina, Austria, Brazil, Chile, China, Germany, Israel, Japan, Greece, Hungary, Peru, Philippines, Poland, Romania, the Russian Federation, Taiwan, the Ukraine, Zimbabwe, and Belarus as recent as 2011, and twice in the US during the Revolutionary War and the Civil War. So the bottom line is that if we stop printing stimulus money, the debt bubble will collapse and the economy will fall into a severe deflationary depression. On the other hand, if we continue printing stimulus money, history dictates that the end result will be the hyperinflationary destruction of the currency. Which one will happen? Well, we think it's pretty simple. Politicians will choose the path of least resistance and perceived pain, which means that they're going to choose to print. But let's imagine for a moment that we're back in 2007 and that everything is fine. The economy is humming along like it had been since 2002. The sky is blue, the birds are chirping, and even if that were the case, well, we'd still have our third challenge out on the horizon waiting for us, which is your parents or the baby boomer generation and the social entitlement program obligations that are tied to them. So this is pretty simple. The US GDP, as we stated earlier, is around $14.5 trillion per year. And between Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, the U.S. has an additional $113 trillion in debt obligations that are coming due, and that is literally impossible for us to pay. Remember, we're going into debt each year by another $1 to $2 trillion. There's no surplus to pay off an additional 113 in obligations that are coming due. So there is no way for the government to pay for these obligations, even if the economy had not crashed. It literally is impossible. And there are only 2 options left to deal with it. First, they can debase the currency through inflation, reducing the overall value of the debt to a manageable level. And in this case, boomers would always get a Social Security check every single month as promised. Let's say it's for $1,000. But the value of that check would be greatly diminished because of inflation, and it won't really do you any good when milk is 20 bucks a gallon. Or their second option is to simply default on the debt, but why would you do that and go through that kind of pain and depression and chaos when you can simply print the money? Well, that brings us to our fourth challenge, which is the great 401k pullout. And Robert Kiyosaki actually predicted this back in 2002 in his book called Rich Dad's Prophecy. Now, when Social Security was created in 1935, there were 42 workers for every retiree. Today, there are only 3.3, and by the year 2030, there will only be 2 workers, which means that it will be impossible to continue funding the Social Security program out there, and this is an issue that's actually gotten quite a bit of press over the past few years. But the baby boomer population has another egg waiting to hatch called the IRA, which mandates that the biggest stock market crash in history is now on the horizon. Congress blessed the 401k plan, which everybody is familiar with, back in 1974 as an attempt to fix the dying pension system. And since then, the 401k and IRAs have become the primary vehicle for investing the money of the baby boomers into the stock market. Their massive population, coupled with relatively steady times in the U.S., politically and financially created an immense demand for stocks and mutual funds. Well, today the majority of wealth still out there in the U.S. is held by the baby boomers in their retirement accounts. But there's a tiny little technicality that's going to trigger the biggest stock market crash in history. As this generation hits the age of 65 between the years 2012 and 2016, the largest amount of them on the bell curve, they are required to pull approximately 6% of their money out of their IRAs by law, which will begin the forced sale of their stock holdings, which means we have the largest and richest group of people in this country pulling their money out of the market at a clip of 6% per year. So with younger generations unable to purchase the amount of stock being sold, the prices will begin to drop quickly. As retirees see the value of their retirement dropping by the day, they're going to pull their money out even faster, starting a mad dash for the exit. Now, finally, we get to our fifth challenge, which is peak oil. Everything that our civilization is today is because of oil. Everything that you see, everything you eat, everything you wear, everything you buy is 100% dependent upon easy, cheap oil. This computer that you're watching this presentation on is nothing more than a physical manifestation of oil that was pumped out of the ground across the other side of the world and the inexpensive, plentiful energy that was released from it. If you were to picture and look out your window right now and just picture the city that you live in covered in black oil, it would be a completely accurate representation because every inch of every road and every brick in every building was created through oil. So if you have any doubt regarding the importance of what's in these barrels, let me put that into perspective for you. This graph shows the growth curve of the human population over the course of the past 8,000 years. And I want to draw your attention to this period right here where the growth suddenly, out of nowhere, turns vertical and exponential. I mean, look at how many thousands of years beforehand, and then it just goes straight up. We're looking at the early 1800s, and I want you to ask yourself what happened during that time period that could have possibly made this kind of growth possible? Well, the answer is simple. It was the discovery of oil and the invention of the first modern oil well. But oil is a finite commodity. There is only so much of it in the ground. And unfortunately, in 1979, we passed the point of cheap and easy on the bell curve and into a realm of diminishing returns that we have no solution for. This is known as the point of peak oil. Peak oil doesn't mean that the world is going to run out of oil, because it isn't. What the world will run out of is cheap oil. Energy is the lifeblood of any economy, and the world as we know it is completely and utterly tied at a genetic level to cheap and easy oil. This is the kind of cheap oil that our miraculous global economy depends upon, the kind of oil that makes it possible to ship bottles of water and potatoes from the other side of the planet and then have them flown and trucked to your local Walmart for less than $1 a bottle. So where do we stand today? Well, right now the U.S. consumes about 25% of the world's daily oil supply and imports more than 70% of that amount. Well, unfortunately, that can't continue because we're dealing with these two graphs and the numbers that they contain. This first graph shows us the progression of new oil discoveries over the past 100 years. And what we need to understand is that the amount of new oil being found has rapidly been declining since 1970. The second chart shows us the level of depletion of existing oil reserves and export rates, which is both obviously pronounced and accelerating. Now, as of 2008, 42 of the largest 50 oil-producing countries had entered into decline. In 2009, the IEA, or International Energy Agency, confirmed that global oil production is currently declining by a rate of 9.1% per year, which is a major problem because developing nations like China and India are hungry for their share, and new oil is becoming more and more expensive and dangerous to find. When oil is cheap, they can't afford to drill for more of it because there's no profit, but when oil is expensive, the endless growth that our global economic system is dependent upon grinds to a halt. We've been living in this sweet spot, but those days are quickly coming to an end, and this is why the economy will never return to its previous levels of growth. The amount of cheap energy needed to fuel it is no longer available, and we are now into the declining stage of the bell curve. So, given these 5 challenges, what will happen to the economy and when? Well, that's what I'm going to cover next, and if you haven't overdosed on antidepressants just yet, congratulations. You've made it through the pain, and now it's time to talk about the massive opportunity that is sitting before you. I did not share all of this with you today to scare you. I shared it with you today because it's simply reality, and everyone watching this has 2 choices. You can hide your head in the sand and ignore it like most people will, hoping that somebody else will save them or do something to fix the problem, or you can see the situation for what it is, take responsibility for your life and your future, and come out the other side of this more prosperous than ever before. And the simple fact of the matter is that we are about to live through the largest wealth transfer in the history of human civilization. So what are you going to do about it, and how can you end up on the winning side? Well, I cannot and will not tell you what you should do with your money. That is your responsibility and your decision, not mine. All I am willing to do is to tell you what I'm personally doing, which at the end of the day may or may not prove to be a wise course of action. So before you buy anything or you do anything with your money, do your homework. Look at the facts as you see them and make your own decisions. Talk to a financial advisor. Personally, I intend to be on the winning side of this transition, which is why I've been doing my homework and taking action for the past several years. So what have I been doing? Well, here's what that looks like. I expect to see deflation, which is taking place right now in the housing, credit, and job markets, followed by hyperinflation because the Fed will print their way to oblivion trying to prevent that. And unfortunately, this means we're most likely going to experience what is called a hyperinflationary depression as major conditions of both tragedies occur simultaneously. And this is what Michael Maloney and Kiyosaki and Peter Schiff and many other people are expecting to see as well. So here's a quick chart of the massive deflation that took place in 2008 and 2009 in housing prices and the beginning of the second leg down that's begun here in 2012. So with those expectations, I have 2 priorities. The first is to protect what I have. For the past 2,400 years, a pattern has continually repeated in which governments debase and dilute their money supply until a point where the common psyche of the people and the collective mind of a country begin to feel that something isn't right. They sense the loss of their purchasing power as the debasement progresses, and then something miraculous happens. Through the free market system, the will of the public causes the only real money on the planet, which is gold and silver, to automatically revalue. And in so doing, it accounts for all the currency that has been created since the last revaluation. Now, here's an example for you that's really fascinating. At the beginning of World War I, Germany went off the gold standard so that they could fund their war by revving up the printing presses. The number of German marks in circulation increased by 400% during the war. Prices, however, did not keep up with inflation, so the effects were not felt. The result is that the number of German marks in circulation increased by 400% during the war. Prices, however, did not keep up with inflation, so that the effects weren't really felt. Now, the reason prices didn't increase with inflation is because in times of uncertainty, people tend to save their money. The last thing the general public is going to do in a time of war is go invest their money in the market or buy a new house. But by the war's end, the sun had started to shine, the dark time had passed, and it was time for prosperity. Confidence came back, and with it, the massive amount of currency that had been hoarded causing rampant and instant inflation. Right before the end of World War I in 1918, the exchange rate between gold and the German mark was about 100 marks per ounce. By 1920, it was 1,000 to 2,000 marks per ounce. Retail prices quickly followed, jumping 10 to 20 times. Now, in today's terms, that means that a gallon of gasoline would go from $3 to $30 to $60 per gallon. So check this out. By 1923, 5 years later, the currency had fallen into hyperinflation. The cost of a single chicken egg went from 8 cents to 80 billion marks. Anyone who had their life savings or wealth in German marks lost everything. And those are not bricks right there. Those are stacks of German cash, German marks that kids are playing with. So here's a really interesting chart that shows that progression from 1919 to 1923. And this is the number of German marks needed to buy 1 ounce of gold in just a 5-year period. Now, on the other hand, if you did own an ounce of gold, it had risen in value from 100 marks to 87 trillion, which in and of itself doesn't really mean anything when eggs cost 80 billion marks apiece. But what that ounce of gold allowed you to do was to retain the wealth that you had worked for years to acquire and to protect it from inflation. At the end of the day, the poor were still poor and the rich who knew the value of gold were still rich. But the middle class who had put its faith in the government and its currency were completely wiped out. If you were able to adapt, and if you had gold, and if you had the knowledge to go get gold, you could take advantage of massive opportunities. And in fact, you could buy an entire city block in downtown Germany for 25 ounces of gold, which is roughly, 42 grand today. So the lesson here is this. Energy is never destroyed, it is only changed from one form to another. And like energy, wealth is never destroyed, it is simply transferred from one agent of value to another. Without exception, every single fiat currency that has ever been created has been destroyed. And also, without exception, the value agent of last resort during its death has always been gold and silver. The track record is flawless. It's 100%. So the purpose of buying gold is not to hoard gold. It's simply to recognize this cycle for what it is and to invest in the proper vehicle at the proper time. The ultimate goal is to accumulate passive cash flow assets like real estate or dividend stocks, but to do so in time with the cycle that we're in, not against it. So let me give you an example to demonstrate what I'm referring to. In 1971, the Case-Shiller home price index for a median single-family home was around 20 grand, $20,663. The price of an ounce of silver at the time was $1.39 per ounce. So that means it would have cost 14,823 ounces of silver to buy a median-priced home that year. The next 9 years consisted of a precious metals bull market. By 1980, the same home cost $42,000, and silver was at $52.50 per ounce, which means it only took 814 ounces of silver at that point to buy the exact same home 9 years later. The home had increased in price 2 times or 100%. However, the currency supply during that same period had grown almost 2.5 times. Inflation increased throughout the 1970s, and while that resulted in the increase in the price of real estate, the actual value of it against silver declined significantly, which had risen 3,641%. So if you bought a home in 1971 and then sold it in 1980, you made a 100% return. Congratulations. On the other hand, if you had invested in silver, you made a 3,641% return. Now, here's something to think about. If you had sold your house in 1971 for roughly 20 grand and purchased silver with that money, by January of 1980, your investment would have outpaced real estate by a factor of 17, growing to $770,000 in just 9 years. If you then sold your silver, you could buy 18 median-priced homes in cash at the 1980 price of $42,000 a house. That's absolutely amazing, and that is what is possible when you get the timing right during these big wealth transfers. Well, today we're in a similar situation, but it's better. Real estate has become much more overvalued, and silver has become extremely undervalued. Measured against silver, the median-priced single-family home in the U.S. peaked in 2001 at 38,123 ounces of silver. Today, silver stockpiles are only a fraction of what they were in 1980. This month, 500-ounce box of silver is selling for around $15,000, and a median home is selling for around $200,000. In 1980, when silver reached its peak against real estate, it took 814 ounces to buy that house. That means that when the cycle repeats, you'd be able to buy that home with only $25,000 worth of silver if you had purchased that silver today at around $30 an ounce. But it gets better. Recently, Adrian Douglas over at GATA.org made the case for silver at $936 per ounce and $56,000 per ounce of gold. And that's possible because it's come to light that the bullion banks around the world have leased all of their gold and silver at a rate of about 45 to 1. That means that for every 1 ounce of physical metal that they have in their possession, they've sold the rights to that metal to 45 other people. Demand for physical delivery of this metal by the potential owners would cause this leverage to unwind, which it will get to that point, increasing the price of silver today from roughly $30 an ounce to over $900, and gold from around $1,700 an ounce to over $56,000 per ounce. Now, it's also important to note that unlike 1980, today we're in the midst of a currency war, a global currency war, as every major nation races to devalue their currency against the dollar. Today's economic crisis is not about stocks or housing. This is the final chapter in the life of another fiat currency that has been abused beyond the point of no return. And if you'll remember, this is that chart that we looked at earlier that shows how the dollar's been dropping in value just over the last year or two in a very significant fashion. Right now, the dollar is going to see a bit of a rebound because of the euro crisis that's happening. All of the money is flooding back into the dollar because it really is the last best option standing. But once the euro debacle comes to its end, then the attention is going to come to the U.S. and the U.S. dollar and the U.S. debt levels, and that's when the wheels are really going to come off. So that's the big canary in the coal mine, is when the euro issue is over, and I believe that that will happen in a very bad way. It's time for the spotlight to be moved to the U.S. dollar. So it's this debasement of the currency that means the largest wealth transfer in the history of mankind is underway. For the very first time, we have globally connected currency markets where currencies are traded by the trillions of dollars per day at the speed of light. And everything eventually is going to revert back to its true unleveraged value, which is intrinsically zero for a fiat currency. That's what history dictates with a 100% track record. Now, whether this is good news or bad news will depend which asset class you're invested in. Personally, I went all in gold and silver starting in 2007 and 2008 when gold was less than $800 an ounce and silver was less than $10 an ounce. But ladies and gentlemen, this is the most important part of this entire presentation. What's your next move? So let's say that you pick up some precious metals and position yourself on the winning side of this wealth transfer during the next year or two. There is going to come a day when the gold bubble bursts, just like the real estate bubble did and the tech bubble before that, which means you're going to need to know two things beforehand. First, when to sell and get out of metals before they plummet, but most important of all, where to put your money next. This is the multi-million-dollar question that has driven me for the past few years, because buying gold and silver right now is simple, it's easy, it's common sense. But knowing what assets to buy and how to buy them in today's new economy will determine how wealthy or poor you become. Now, I don't know about you, but I wasn't raised with a real education in wealth creation. I grew up in a middle-class family with hardworking parents who did the exact same thing that everybody else did with their money. They handed it over to a financial advisor who invested it for the long term in a diversified portfolio of mutual funds and a Roth IRA. And along with everybody else, they've since lost a sizable portion of their retirement over the past few years that they will never get back. Well, those days are over. And you would have to be an absolute fool to hand your money over to anyone in that industry again who doesn't acknowledge or understand what is taking place today. So the lesson for me has been loud and clear. If you stick your money into the vehicles used by the rest of the middle class, you're going to get sheared with the rest of the sheep. So if you want to become rich these days, you have to invest your money like the rich do, which sounds great in theory, but there is one little problem with that. There aren't any books or courses out there in the world that shows you how to do that in any kind of detail. And I know this because I've spent the past several years looking for them. So sure, there are hundreds of books on making money with real estate, forex, stocks, or options, but those are just singular tools and skill sets that are used to generate cash or offset taxes. When it comes to a true blueprint for unlimited wealth creation in this new paradigm and this new economy, it doesn't exist. And when you sit down and think about it, it's not really surprising. I mean, after all, people who are extremely rich typically don't want to talk about it, especially in today's economy, let alone write a book telling others how they did it. Which means that this kind of knowledge is basically trapped inside what I call a black box that's hidden from the general public like you and I. But time is too short and the stakes are just too large right now for you to sit on the sidelines and do nothing, or to continue on the path that you've been on for the past 10, 15, 20 years as if things were going to go back to normal, because they aren't. The time is right now to make a change and to make a move. It's not next week. It's not next year. It is right now. With every day that goes by, the window of opportunity gets smaller and smaller and the risks of inaction get larger and larger. So I decided that I had no other choice but to take matters into my own hands and to crack open that box myself. If I wanted to take advantage of this wealth transfer, I had to get the information and the knowledge to, and the ability to be able to do that. So the result of that began as a simple passion project I created for myself and a few close friends, nicknamed the Elevation Group. And my strategy was simple. There are 3 things that you need to get yourself out of the middle class investment slaughterhouse and into the world of the rich. First, you need cutting edge inside information from people who really know what's going on, not from the talking heads on CNBC or from your advisor who's only regurgitating company mantras that are designed to simply sell you on more of their products. Second, you need the knowledge and skills needed to act on the information you receive. For example, if you're going to buy gold, you need to know how much to buy, what kind to buy, where are you going to buy it from, and eventually when and where are you going to sell it. If you're going to set up your own personal family bank, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, you need to know how to do that. If you're going to buy an apartment complex or commercial properties, you need to know how that's done. And finally, and most importantly, you need to have the Rolodex necessary to make all of this possible. And this is the single most important piece to this entire puzzle, because building wealth is not as much, in my opinion, about what you know, but who you know. You don't need to be an expert in any of these complicated investing arenas to reap the rewards, but you have to know others who are. So over the past few months and at this very moment, I am systematically using my Rolodex and connections to track down individuals around the world who have net worths that range anywhere from a minimum of $10 million to $1 billion. I'm flying to their homes, I'm putting them on private conference calls, I'm getting them to reveal how they invest and grow their money personally, and I'm documenting the entire process in a way that's never been done before inside the Elevation Group Diary. And the goal of EVG, which is what we call it for short, is simple. It's to empower average, ordinary people like you and I with the knowledge and contacts needed to achieve extraordinary wealth in a brave new world of investing. For example, one of my first goals was to identify the best way to create a secure retirement foundation that would not be susceptible to the crazy ups and downs of the market that we're experiencing today. Obviously using investment tools like a 401k or mutual funds that were tied to market performance are no longer options that any sane person would take. As you've learned earlier, the days of unlimited global growth that a long-term stock-based investment portfolio depends upon are over. So what's the alternative? Well, using my network, I was introduced to a wealthy financial advisor and entrepreneur named Paul, who is here in Austin, who taught me how to essentially create my own family bank, which is a strategy used by the rich to accomplish several very important things. For example, this strategy alone provides you with a guaranteed return that averages 6 to 10% per year without any risk of the principal, which means the amount will never drop even if the market does. Imagine what that would have been like if you had the majority of your savings or retirement funds in this kind of system back in 2008 when the market crashed, and you wouldn't have had that big 30 to 40% drop. I mean, that would have made such a big difference in people's lives and probably yours. So that is a really cool feature, but there's a bunch more here. Second, this strategy enables you to take out your money whenever you want without penalty. It provides you complete protection against creditors, so you'll never have to worry about losing your retirement money due to a lawsuit or bankruptcy. Unlike 401ks or IRAs, there's no limit to how much you can invest. You can use the money inside your quote-unquote personal bank as collateral for the purchase of a home. This strategy offers extreme liquidity so that you can have your money in your hands within a few days in the case of an emergency. It provides you with monthly revenue in the event of a disability. It allows you to be your own bank so that you can buy your home, your cars, pay for your kids' college tuition, or any other large purchases, whatever you want, and pay yourself the interest so that you're earning the interest instead of the bank. And best of all, it can allow you to pull out 100% of your money tax-free when you decide to retire. Read that again. So this one single investment has completely covered my retirement. For 40 years, starting at the age of 60, all the way through age 100, my family and I will have a guaranteed annual income of approximately $100,000 per month based on a 6% annual return, which is very conservative in this vehicle. In fact, my return on this last year was 10.25%. Obviously, there's no guarantees. That's just what I made, and that's the average. Now, by law, I do not have to pay a single dime in taxes on the money, nor will it ever drop in amount, even if the market does. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, what happens if hyperinflation kicks in? Well, I can take the money out within the next 48 to 72 hours and go turn it into gold. It has that kind of liquidity so that you can go and do that. Now, that means I can swing for the fences. My retirement is covered. I can go for more aggressive investments without having to worry about anything happening to that money. Now, in the second session of EVG, I actually sit down with Paul and we take you through this entire system step by step and show you all the numbers and exactly how it works. And this is the really cool part. If you want to pursue this strategy for yourself, you get Paul's contact information, including his phone number and email address, in our Rolodex section. Now, the next person that I got on the phone was Robert Kiyosaki's personal advisor on gold and silver and wealth cycles, Michael Maloney. Michael's become a really good friend of mine since we met in 2007, and he's widely regarded as one of the world's leading experts when it comes to the global currency and finance system. This is actually a picture of him speaking at the 8th Annual Russian International Banking Conference on the dangers facing the global fiat currency system today. And he's my inside guy when it comes to wealth cycles and the health of today's currency system. And he's also the reason I went so heavy into gold and silver back in 2007 and 2008. But contrary to popular belief, Michael's not a gold and silver guy, and he'll be the first person to tell you that. He's a wealth cycles guy, and we are currently mapping out our strategy of when we'll be selling our metals and what we'll be buying with the profits. And yes, you'll get all of those details in this session of EVG, and you'll find out when I sell my metals and what I'm going to put my money into the day that I actually do it. Now, in the meantime, you're also going to get access to these little known resources where I buy my gold for the best price, for the best service, for the best inventory, what kind I buy for tax purposes, where I store it, and when and where I'll be selling it. Now, I highly recommend that you do not buy any precious metals without this information first. It will cost you, most likely, a lot of money. There's things like collectibles and numismatics, and there's specific dealers that I buy from and specific dealers that I don't. And if you get this wrong, it's going to be an expensive learning lesson for you that I'd rather you not make. So anyway, that information is back there as well. Now, I'm sure a few of you are asking if it's too late to jump on the bandwagon or if gold and silver are already overbought and in a bubble. Well, I can't and won't make that decision for you, but I can tell you that I am currently still buying as much as I can. And I'll only be selling when the fundamentals that Michael and I discuss in this session of the Elevation Group are reached. But these two examples are really just the tip of the information iceberg we've already uncovered. For those of you that have children or who are planning to have children, Paul and I uploaded recently an amazing session that will teach you how families like the Rothschilds educate and prepare their children to respect, manage, and grow their wealth from one generation to the next. And age is irrelevant here, whether your kids are grown with families of their own or if you have teenagers who are just starting to appreciate the value of the dollar. Without this training, there's a very good chance your smart decisions and hard work today will be squandered within years after your passing, just as you've seen happen in Hollywood headlines, about rich children who really never learned the lessons that their parents did about money. But with this knowledge, you'll be able to set the foundation to create a legacy of wealth that will last and grow, empowering future generations you'll never meet with the knowledge, skills, and abilities to change the world for the better. 100 years from now, they'll look back along the lineage of your family tree and know that you are the one that changed their destinies. That's the kind of stuff that we're teaching people and that we're learning and that we're implementing for ourselves. And it's not out there. In the first 6 months alone in this project, let me show you real quick what we've covered. Lesson 1 was how to profit from the greatest wealth transfer in history, again with Michael Maloney. Lesson 2 is how to become your own bank and retire 100% tax-free. Lesson 3, everything you need to know about buying and selling gold and silver. And in Lesson 4, we revealed the Rothschild's formula for creating a family legacy and for educating your children to change your family's destiny for decades to come. In Lesson 5, we sit down with my attorney, Rob, on why and how I'm diversifying my assets overseas. In Lesson 6, we talk about how you can uncover the secrets of the credit score game to maximize your investment opportunities. You talk about the credit markets freezing up and it becoming really hard to get a loan to start a business or buy a house. Well, this is exactly why we cover this information here inside EVG. In Lesson 7, we talked to Gonzalo Lear on how to profit from hyperinflation, who actually went through and lived through hyperinflation in Chile decades ago. In Lesson 8, we talk about how to prepare for the worst of times so that you will only know the best of times. Every single wealthy individual I know are making basic preparations for some kind of economic disruption in the coming months to coming years. And if you're prepared, then that gives you the ability to turn that period of disruption into an advantage. In Lesson 10, and this has been huge, it's been one of our most popular lessons, we actually show you how you can legally free your IRA and invest the money you have in there wherever you want. You can buy cash flow real estate, you can buy physical precious metals, gold and silver. This has been absolutely priceless for people who have money locked in an IRA and stocks and who see what's coming and who want to get it out before it's too late. In this lesson, which is one that I produced, I actually show you how to increase your monthly cash flow by starting a simple home-based business. And this is where I'm teaching EVG members everything that I've learned over the past 7-8 years as an entrepreneur and making well over $30 million from home, how I did that and where I think the opportunities are today in today's economy and where I think they're going to be in the coming decade, which is really the most important piece of the puzzle here. If you're going to start a business or get involved in a business, you have to make sure it's in the right market for the right time and aligned with these transitions that are taking place today. And so that was a session that I filmed that I had a lot of fun with and that, frankly is unbelievably valuable. But the best part about all of this is that everything I've just mentioned is actually taking place in real life. This isn't theory, this isn't some old dusty financial education book written by a scholar who's never actually done any of it. This is a living adventure that takes the two of us around the world and inside the black box investing strategies of the rich in a way that's never been done before and that everybody can understand. Just got back recently from spending a week on Necker Island with Richard Branson. One of the world's biggest billionaires owns the Virgin portfolio of companies, and we sat down and took the cameras and filmed a session there on Necker. It was an unbelievable period, but these are the kinds of people that we're meeting, the kinds of connections that we're making, and all of the people involved in this project want to help you. That's why everybody is doing this, to make sure that you can make it through this transition period safely, securely, and to position yourself in a way that you can actually profit from the changes that are coming. We are pulling back these curtains and giving all of us the knowledge that your financial advisor either didn't want you to see or he didn't even know it existed. And for the very first time, anyone who wants it will have access to the strategies and techniques that are actually being used by the truly rich to invest, protect, and grow their wealth, especially during the turbulent times we are faced with today. Individuals that I have come to know and trust who are worth tens of millions, hundreds of millions, and even billions of dollars are going to sit down and teach you their philosophies and beliefs about money that enable them to attract it. They're going to sit down and show you how and where they invest their money so that you can grow it like they do. And they're going to teach you how to protect your money from financial disaster and give your children the leadership and skills they need in order to respect the wealth that you and your family will accumulate so that they can be free as well. Creating wealth in your life is about to get very real. It's about to get personal, and it is about to get very detailed. So whether you're in debt, about to retire, or if you're just starting the most productive years of your life, the Elevation Group is going to provide you with the answers that you need to take control of your financial destiny and to give, frankly, the proverbial finger to financial mediocrity. So if you want to join me on this journey, I have two quick pieces left to cover. First, I want to tell you how you can be one of the very first people to join the Elevation Group today at a 50% discount. And finally, I'm going to answer some of the frequently asked questions that we've seen on Facebook and received via email. So let's start with that 50% discount. The Elevation Group is a private membership, and there is only one rule or expectation that I require of you as a member, which is that you take responsibility for your financial decisions. I have zero tolerance for whiners, complainers, excuse makers, and people who like to blame others for their problems. I surround myself with positive people who constantly seek to better themselves, and that includes my customers. So if you're willing to do that, you are qualified to join. Now, as for the price and your discount, if you aren't familiar with private memberships or newsletters in the financial arena, I can tell you right now that they are not cheap. The majority of them cost from $2,000 to $12,000 a year, with some as much as $50,000 per year. And in fact, this is the receipt of just one newsletter I subscribe to, which cost me 15 grand a year just to be a part of. Now, obviously, my goal with the Elevation Group is to get this information into the hands of as many people as possible, but while still respecting the amount of value, work, research, and content that goes into this project each month. So we've created two very simple options for everybody. The first is our standard rate for an EVG membership, which is $197 a month. That's $6 a day, which is less than most people spend on their daily coffee fix. Right now, I'd like to offer you a massive 50% discount and cut the price in half to just $97 a month when you join today for one reason. You took the time to watch this presentation and invest in your future. That's less than $3 a day for information and contacts that will change your financial destiny by the time you're finished watching the very first video. Now, the second option is our annual membership. If you commit to joining me on this journey for an entire year, I'm going to provide you with a full 12-month membership, which is a $2,364 value for one single payment of $597. That represents an incredible 75% discount off the normal annual price and brings the equivalent monthly price down from $97 to just $49 per month. So you can choose either option from a 50% discount on the monthly rate or join for a year and get a 75% discount on the annual rate. Obviously, I want you to join for a full year because that's how you're going to get the most value from your membership, which is why I'm offering you such a large discount on that option. Please understand that this special offer is not available on the Elevation Group website. This discount is only available right now during this presentation. Now, whether you pay full price tomorrow or if you join today at a discount, your membership comes with a 30-day, no questions asked money-back guarantee. So if you dive in and it's just not right for you for whatever reason, you can simply head to theelevationgroup.net/support and request a no questions asked refund. If you don't feel like you received 10 times more in value from your membership than the price that you paid, I don't want your money, period. This means that you have nothing to lose. Either you're blown away by what you learn and it helps you build a fortune in the coming years, or you don't pay a dime. Now you can click the payment option button that suits you best right now to get started, and the registration page is going to open up in a new window so that you can continue listening. Because there's a question I'm sure a few people have been asking themselves right now, which is this. Hey Mike, wow, this looks amazing. I'd love to join the Elevation Group, but what if I don't have any extra money to invest right now? Well, that's a great question, and I get it, because I've been there. So if you're wondering if you need to have some kind of minimum amount of money on hand to really take advantage of the opportunities that you come across through EVG, let me share my thoughts with you on that real quick. You can get into the precious metals cycle right now for about $30 for a single ounce of silver. You can set up your own family bank using the strategies in Lesson 2 for as little as $300 a month. And then there are the opportunities that have buy-ins, anywhere from $50,000 to $1 million on up. But if that's what you're worried about, you're missing what I believe is really important. Yes, having access to the people and investment opportunities I come across is invaluable. But the real value of becoming a member is the fact that you'll be changing your subconscious mindset and your relationship with wealth and with prosperity every single time you log in and go through the content. It's a well-known fact that how much money you make over the next 2 to 5 years will be the average of the 5 people you're associating with most right now. And that is the real power of the Elevation Group, because it gives you a direct line into a growing group of some of the most respected and wealthy people in the world that you'll have an opportunity to spend as much time as you want with each and every day. And as you do so, your thinking will change, your attitude will change, your relationships will change, your income will change, and as a result, your financial destiny will change, which means that when you become a member, your potential for change and wealth accumulation at that point becomes infinite. If you don't become a member, well, the results are obvious. You'll wake up tomorrow in the exact same position, or worse, given what you now know is coming from an economic perspective, than you are today. So, guys, with that being said, I got to get off my soapbox. I realize before I get a little too fired up here. I want to thank you for joining me today for our presentation. I want to thank you for becoming a member of the Elevation Group and our little movement to change the world for the better. If you haven't registered yet, just click the payment option that suits you best and get started. You'll have instant access to the entire library of current lessons since we began and diary entries of the Elevation Group within the next 2 to 3 minutes. This is your one and only opportunity to lock in that special discount of up to 75% that's available to you right now. So freaking take advantage of it. Why not? It does come again with a 30-day, no questions asked, money-back guarantee. You have absolutely nothing to lose, and I want to make sure that you get to take advantage of a 75% discount. So thank you once again. I'm really looking forward to the incredible journey that we're going to continue taking together. So have a fantastic day, and I'm going to leave you here with some reviews submitted by current members who decided to say yes when they were sitting in your position over the past couple of weeks or couple of months, and who voted for a better future for themselves and their families. Once again, thank you so much. Have a fantastic day.
Hi, Mike. Lee Ninneman here. Mike, I'm a financial advisor. When I saw your Elevation Group being advertised, I wanted to see a little bit more of what it was about. There's some scary stuff going on right now in our economy, and I'm always looking for opportunities to be able to educate my people better. And I wanted to take advantage of anything that might educate me more in that regards. As I've had the opportunity to already review some of the items you have there, the infinite banking concept, and now the most recent post, the gold and silver information, I'll tell you, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to the next things that you bring out. I would recommend this to anyone who is seriously looking to make sure that they're not left behind as far as what's going on in this economy. I'll tell you, one word describes it. It's bodacious. Bodacious. Anyone who doesn't know what that word means, look it up, because it describes your program to the T.
Hi, this is Matt Connor from Bozeman, Montana, and the reason why I joined the Elevation Group was for the how-to. I wanted to learn exactly how to implement some of these strategies I've been hearing about for the last few years from guys like Robert Kiyosaki and Michael Maloney. And, that's where the Elevation Group has stepped in and has promised to show us exactly how to implement some of these black box strategies of the rich. And, man, after logging in, I wasn't disappointed at all. There's hours and hours of content in there already covering several different strategies that the rich use. And, in fact, one strategy, the infinite banking strategy, which I probably like the best so far, is something that I've already started implementing as of today. So if you're thinking about joining the Elevation Group, I say just go for it. You have nothing to lose. It's such a small price to pay for securing your financial future. If you don't want to get left behind like the rest of middle-class America as the economy continues to crumble around you, then this is the place to be. I know I haven't been disappointed by joining, and you won't either.
Hi, my name is Eddie Espiritu, and I have been a home-based business entrepreneur since 1994. And I've been very, very pleased and satisfied over the years with all of the products and services that I participated in with Mr. Mike Dillard. They've always been top-notch. In fact, when I decided to join the Elevation Group, I really didn't even know what it was going to be about at first. I just knew that if Mike was involved, it was going to be good. Over the years, one of the lessons that I've learned in business is that although it's important what we know, more importantly, it's important who we know. And the Elevation Group is all about giving us access, you and I, the everyday person, giving us access to the knowledge and the connections and the resources that we need to not only create wealth, but long-lasting wealth. When I logged into the back office of the Elevation Group and I started going through the material, needless to say, top-notch is exactly what I expected. If you're considering joining the Elevation Group, I highly recommend it. The information, the knowledge, and the resources will change your life.
Hi guys, this is Andre Accord, all the way from the Netherlands in Europe, giving you some information on Mike Dillard's Elevation Group. I've just joined the Elevation Group and I must say I am blown away by the information I'm getting. I'm getting wisdom and knowledge on how to create wealth, to preserve it, so I can leave a heritage for my children, for my children's children. And the way the content is being delivered, it's in a no-nonsense way. It's easy to understand, and it really helps me. So I can honestly recommend this program. There is a money-back guarantee, so if you join, you don't like it, you can step out. But I think if you listen to the first few videos, you'll be blown away and hooked in a positive way. What really added information to me was Mike Maloney speaking on the cycles of silver and gold. Great stuff.
Hi Mike, Stevie Sullivan here in Los Angeles, California, also known as Boomer Mama, rocking the internet. And I wanted to tell you thank you for the Elevate program. I had a chance to hang out with you a couple of different times and heard you refer to this, and I'm so excited that this program is here. I feel like there's a really great need for it. Who am I? I'm 60 years old. I'm part of that Boomer generation. I am in part of a sandwich generation. I have a 98-year-old on one side. I have two young adults, 21 and 24, on the other. And I feel like I'm going to be and am responsible for a good portion and piece of the financial future of my family. And I want to make sure that I have my hands on the best information possible. What did I think when I opened up Elevate? What I saw were some pretty creative ideas. It wasn't just the same old status quo. And it's really about taking possession and control and really learning a great deal of information in order to be able to make the right financial decisions and really plot and plan out your future. Part of the problem we all had before is the greed and the debacle on Wall Street and what happened to people's investments when they thought they were all doing the right thing. But that was based upon putting your future in other people's hands and trusting that they knew what they were doing. I don't think we can do that anymore. I think the economy, not only just in the United States, but also on a global scale, is going to be headed into the world of the haves and the have-nots. And I want to make sure that I take control of my financial future, because at the age of 60, I want to make sure that the rest of the years that I do have are going to be some of the most creative in my life financially, so that I can live the kind of life that I want to live. I want to be armed, I want to be prepared, I want to be in the know, and I want to be steps ahead of the market, and I think that's what Elevate does. I've spent a great deal of time talking about this program to other people, and it's part of my major Boomer influence that I have out there with my Boomer conference coming up in the fall. Elevate is going to be and is a major piece and part of that. I'm so adamant that people have got to create their financial stability themselves and their wealth. And there has to be wealth in a whole new way. And it's not slow growth. It's going to be some pretty aggressive moves based upon some pretty intense knowledge and timing. And I love all of that. I want to thank you for this opportunity to be here. And I look awfully serious, and I want to smile about this because I know that this is going to make a real difference in my life. I want to thank you for your brilliance, and I want to thank you for doing it. Again, one more time, Mr. Mike Dillard, thank you for Elevate from the bottom of my heart, and I'm delighted to be here as part of this beta program. And if anybody wants to know if this is a program of benefit, you only need to spend about probably a minute or two wandering through the office and the site to figure that out for yourself. So look out, jump in, jump on, and grab a hold of your future. Thanks a lot, Mike. You did it again.
Hi, Cameron Carpenter here in Salt Lake City, Utah. I just wanted to thank you, Mike Dillard, for forming the Elevation Group and for doing the legwork and research that you've done in putting a historical perspective on just what the hell's been going on in the U.S. economy over the last 3 years. I lost a lot of money in 2007, 2008, from investment real estate, and was left, frankly, pretty confused and distraught and disenchanted and wondering what the next moves are. And I heard your message about wealth transfer and what to look forward to in the coming months and years based on historical perspective and what's happened in the past, and your information's been spot on. I've been really impressed by the professionals you've put together and the invaluable information and advice they've been able to give so far very early on, and you haven't really even launched yet. So if any of you are thinking about getting into the Elevation Group, I would suggest do it as soon as you can. It's some of the best money you could spend on great advice and getting on in the inside, because if you're not on the inside, you're definitely on the outside, and it's not a good place to be. So hope to see you on the inside soon. Thanks, Mike, and looking forward to the journey.
Hey Mike, Sal Harper here, and I just quickly wanted to share my experience and story with you. 2010 has truly been a life-transforming year for me. You see, earlier this year, I discovered my life's purpose is to help others with their finances. I have always been a good steward of money, and reflecting on my career as a budget and financial analyst, I didn't realize until recently that managing a multi-million-dollar budget for a Fortune 50 company has been preparation for the opportunity today to teach others how to manage and invest their own money. Inside the Elevation Group, you have provided us with the most advanced resources, tools, and investment information that the average person doesn't even know exist. Only the ultra-wealthy have been privy to this information until now. And the best part about this site is that you don't have to be rich to start applying some of these investment strategies. Now, I know I sound like a paid advertisement, but that's just my passion and enthusiasm about how EBG is helping to educate people on so many levels. Anyone concerned about their financial future and financial security must take a look at the Evolution Group. Mike, I am so excited to be a part of this group. Thanks for caring, my friend, and sharing this wealth of information.
Hey guys, if you're on this page, it's because you're looking at Mike Dillard and you're familiar with Mike Dillard's content. This is Nate Forrest from Fayetteville, Arkansas with the Razorback Marching Band behind me. Guys, if you're thinking about the Elevation Group, don't think about it, join today. The information inside is phenomenal. As we've always been taught, it's not what you know, but it's who you know. Your income will be determined by the top 5 people you spend your time with. And that's the best part about the Elevation Group is Mike Dillard has aligned himself with millionaires and literally billionaires and put together some content so you know when to get in, when to get out, what the wealth cycles are. Guys, if you're thinking about the Elevation Group, get in. Again, this is Nate Forrest from Fayetteville, Arkansas saying, Woo Pig Suey. We're about to run onto the field with the Razorback Marching Band. Watch Arkansas beat Vanderbilt. Mike Dillard, thank you for the Elevation Group. Let's go. Here we come, boys.
Hello, my name is Jeff Pierce. I'm a full-time day trader from Vancouver, and I interact daily with traders whose biggest concerns are how high is gold going to go? Are we going to experience hyperinflation? And the answer to these questions and more is what makes the Elevation Group an industry first. When I first logged on, I was like, wow, I'm not alone. There's a community here. Because after the '08 meltdown left most with a sense of, what do I do now? That's very short-term thinking when you need to be thinking longer term. And that's what I like best about the Elevation Group, is it teaches you how to protect your savings in an era of rising taxes and currency devaluations, while empowering you by providing contacts and the knowledge to create a passive income. And to those who are thinking about joining the Elevation Group, I firmly believe that you are better off with Mike Dillard and his proven track record of success to deliver you the skills and the tools needed to get you to wherever your financial destination is. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ricardo Lalama, and I'm a chiropractor here in the state of New Jersey. And like most traditional professionals, I actually went down the route of getting good grades, getting a good education, getting a good job, and also making good money. The only problem is that I actually never learned or even had time to learn how to leverage my finances. And just knowing that has been so frustrating for me for a long time because I knew it was a language of finances that I had to learn how to speak. So when I learned that Mike Dillard was actually organizing the Elevation Group, I knew that I had to jump right in. So I didn't hesitate. I jumped right in, became a member, and I started learning the information that he has back there. And I got to tell you, what the amount of information he has so far is very impressive. And just knowing that it's a tip of the iceberg, I mean, I'm just literally blown away. You learn stuff like that I never knew what wealth cycles are, how to leverage and position yourself to gain the most from them. You learn how to leverage your life insurance and also your mortgage. We're constantly taught to traditionally to pay it off as soon as we can, but you got to learn how to, and what they'll teach you is learn how to leverage it like the wealthy do. And also becoming your own bank, that blew me away. How do you become your own bank? You'll learn that in the back office with the Elevation Group. Now, as a chiropractor, we're constantly taught to teach our patients that structure dictates function. And it's the same exact thing here. What you will learn in the back office of the Elevation Group is that if you structure your finances accordingly and properly, you will actually have it function so that it can grow and benefit you in the long run. So with that said, know that the knowledge you gain in the back will be vital for your future. And not only that, you'll have the resources to apply this knowledge. So if you're thinking about joining the Elevation Group, definitely do so. Don't hesitate. Do like I did, just jump right in and start learning. With that said, I look forward to someday maybe perhaps creating a strategic alliance. Take care.
Hey guys, this is Eric Webster, and I just wanted to tell you a little bit about why I decided to get involved with Mike Dillard and his new Elevation Group. First, it's Mike Dillard. He always brings top notch, and he's done it again. When I first opened up the back office, I saw, whoa, he went a lot beyond what I thought he was going to do. Because, I've studied a lot of these issues, and I'm actually pretty well aware with a lot of stuff Mike's talked about publicly so far. But here's the deal. Unless you got connections, and this is what Mike brings to the table, is connections. Some of this stuff, you're not going to get a seat at the table. You're not going to be able to play, no matter how educated you are about it. Some of this stuff, you got to have the connections. And Mike, being the celebrity he is, he brings those connections. So if you're even thinking about this, you need to get in because, we got a disaster coming. And this is the information you need to get ahead, stay ahead, and prosper when everybody else is suffering. So get on in. It's going to be a good ride. Catch you later.
Hey everybody, Laura Reeves here. Just a quick shout out to let you know that I joined the Elevation Group about a week and a half ago. The information I'm getting inside that group from the mega wealthy is amazing to me. I desperately needed it for my own finances. I don't have a problem making the money, but I have a little bit of a problem keeping the money. So I'm having a blast. I cannot believe the information that has already helped me to strategize for my future that I've gotten on the inside. And I can't even imagine what I'm going to learn in the months to come. I love it. If you're thinking of joining the Elevation Group, you might want to ask yourself, instead of, why should I join the Elevation Group? You might want to ask yourself, why wouldn't you? This is important for our future. It's important to take control of our own destiny. And I am excited as all get out. So hope to see you on the inside. Take care.
My name is Dan Jay. I'm from Dallas, Texas. The reason I joined the Elevation Group is I work in the financial services industry, life settlements to be exact. I manage portfolios for professional athletes and high net worth individuals. So when I saw that Mike Dillard was coming out with a new product, knowing Mike's history and that he's always ahead of the curve, I was like, I'll check it out. So I ended up getting inside the back office and checking it out, and I was completely blown away. This is not information that you can find anywhere. This isn't stuff your CPA is going to tell you. It's certainly not stuff you're going to learn in college or anything like that, or in my case, anything that you're being taught in the financial services industry. So if you're thinking about joining the Elevation Group, please do for your own family's future. I don't care if you're just looking to add an extra few $100s a month with an investment, or you're looking to create a long-term situation like Paul Harmon talks about in his videos, and being able to create your own family bank and things like that. That's just stuff that's never been talked about before, and you're never going to find it anywhere else. So I would always recommend that you join the Elevation Group and just get out of it what I feel like I'm getting out of it. Thanks.
Hello there, my name is Lucian Bouchard. I'm a 32-year-old Gen Xer that's been dealt the lucky fate of having to pay for the baby boomers' retirement. I spent the past 14 years or so as an entrepreneur learning about wealth creation from some of the top millionaires in this industry. And I've got to tell you folks, what they've taught me is nothing comparison to what I've learned in the Elevation Group so far. The information in the Elevation Group is downright shocking and nearly scared me half to death when I reviewed it. So I tell you folks, there's nothing out there in this world right now like the Elevation Group. And just to take a moment to share with you about Mike Dillard, guys, he's just a man of integrity, and when he speaks you should really listen. The information that he'll provide you is just absolutely incredible. So I can't wait to see what Mike Dillard has in store for us. I can't wait to share a mastermind with you all in this group, and let's take this journey together. So if you're on the fence about whether you should join the Elevation Group, just do it already. Take the plunge, and I'll tell you, it'll be the best financial decision that you've ever made in your entire life. So I'll see you all on the inside. Thanks so much, Mike Dillard, and I'll talk to you guys later. Enjoy.
Hey everyone, my name is Gary Houghton, and I'd like to take a minute and just share with you my reasons for why I joined the Elevation Group. There's just so much uncertainty right now in the markets and the overall economy, and like you, I'm a little bit overwhelmed with it. So I heard that Mike Dillard was going to start this company called the Elevation Group, where he was going to share with people like you and me, you know, ordinary people, the secrets of the ultra wealthy. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, like what other opportunity do we have where we can follow somebody, a successful person, you know, and what they're going to do with their money over the next 3 to 5 years. So I signed up, got in the back office, and was just blown away with the content. It's not rocket science. The manner in which it's taught, it's easy to understand. The information is you can apply right away. And so I'm excited that I'm taking advantage of this. And if you're watching this video and you're undecided, you're not sure if you're going to sign up, sign up. I mean, join us on the inside. The information that you're going to learn and what you're going to be able to do with your money in the next 3 to 5 years is just going to be huge. Thank you again, Mike, for providing this value to us, and I look forward to seeing everybody on the inside.